All right. So first off, I want to give all praise to Yahweh in the name of the Son, Yahweh Shai, in the name of the Holy Spirit. Double honors to my elders, apostles, and the bishops of Great Millstone, otherwise known as GMS, also known as Prophets of Doom. I also want to give a shalom to the remnant and the elect of Israel. Lord willing, I'm of that number. All right, so this is going to be um, another thing to consider in this truth or about this truth. All right, we're going to speak on what we've learned from my elders, apostles, all right, the teachers in the book of Sirach here, which is in the Apocrypha. All right, this is the 1611 King James, and the Apocrypha is in here. Okay, so let's get to the prologue of Ecclesiasticus. Okay, we're going to read this prologue, but not the whole thing. We're just going to go straight to a point that we want to get across here. All right, it reads, "Wherefore let me entreat you to read it with favor and attention, and to pardon us, wherein we may seem to come short of some words, which we have labored to interpret. For the same things uttered in Hebrew, and translated into an other tongue, have not the same force in them, and not only these things, but the law itself, and the prophets, and the rest of the books have no small difference when they are spoken in their own language." So, in essence, what this is telling you is that even though there are different denominations, different interpretations of the scriptures, there's only one truth, okay? And a big key to figuring out or to understanding what the scriptures are saying is to go into, well, first of all, you have to know that the English is not going to give you everything you need. All right, being over here in America, you get the American or the Western pride on you. All right, where you think just because you read something in your language that is letting you know everything you need to know. All right, that is not true, especially when it comes to the scriptures. All right, you have to go back into the Hebrew for the Old Testament and the Greek for the New Testament. And even a lot of those Greek words go back to the root word, which is a Hebrew word. Okay, so this is a good news translation. We're going to read that same thing that we read there in the 1611, but this time it's going to be in the King James. Now listen, and also keep in mind that both of these we're reading in English, and it's getting the point across. All right, reading it in two different translations. That's why you should not be scared of the translations, man. If you have a foundation, okay, you can discern if something is going off. All right, so let's get to this prologue of Ecclesiasticus, and the good news is called the Book of Sirach. Okay, so again it reads, "Let me urge you then to read this book carefully and with an open mind. And please be patient in those places where, in spite of my diligent efforts, I may not have translated some phrases very well. What was originally written in Hebrew does not always have exactly the same sense when it is translated into another language. That is true not only of this book, but even the law itself, the prophets, and the other books. The translations differ quite a bit from the original, which points to why you need a foundation. All right. So don't think that you can read every single thing in the English and understand what it's saying. Okay. This is what we learn from our teachers, our apostles, our elders, bishops. All right. This is known throughout GMS. Okay. This is a very basic, a key building block to your understanding. All right. But you don't think that can do this without having the Spirit also. All right. At some point in time, you may get to a certain point in these scriptures. You may get further than some beginning Israelites or some beginning people that the Lord want to go all the way. All right. But He will sooner or later filter you out if you're not meant to understand this whole thing. All right. So we've read these scriptures before. So let's, as an example, so let's go back here to Genesis 1. All right, we're going to go to Genesis 1 and 1 to get an example of, all right, going into these words. So we all know that there is, or we should know, all right, that there is a most high power and that there is His Son. Okay, they're two separate beings. They are not the same. They have the same mind as we have the same mind as Yahweh and Yahweh Shai, but as we have the same mind as Yahweh Shai, but we are not them. All right, we have the same mind, but we're not the same being. Okay, so when you ask someone, basically, I mean, who created the heavens and earth? As far as the scriptures are concerned, they'll tell you God, which you have to know that the Most High's name is Yahweh. Right, His Son's name is Yahweh Shai. Right, they'll say that God created everything. I mean, the earth. Okay, which in a way they're right because God is a title and a trait, but the God that created the heavens and the earth is the Messiah, the Son. Okay, and we're gonna go and look at these words really quickly. Okay, Genesis 1 and 1 says, "In the beginning, God created the heaven and earth." Okay, so let's go in here and look at this word for God. All right, here it is. It's a Hebrew word. Now listen, it'll say H before the numbers. All right, that means Hebrew. If you have a Strong's Concordance, you'll have a H section. You'll have a G section. That's for Hebrew, and then the G is for Greek. All right, this is a H word. So listen up to this.
Strong's H 430, entry 1. Eloach. Eloach. Second entry. Elohim. Elohim.
Okay, so this will.
And the third entry. Eloach. Eloach.
All right, this will pronounce words in a certain way. All right, pronunciations are off. Okay, it'll take study to realize this. Okay, what this word is Elohim. All right, Elohim. Let's see what it means. It says outline of biblical usage. It says plural. Okay, it says rulers, judges, divine ones, angels, gods. Okay, all right, or it can speak of the one true power. Okay, but here it's plural. All right, what does that mean? Okay, it says that plural created the heavens and earth. All right, that was the Most High Son. Okay, His first and only created spirit, and then after that, guess what? His Son created everything: the earth. Okay, the heavens and the earth. Okay, the angels. His Son and the angels created everything. All right. Furthermore, if we go back to these couple of other verses that we touched on, all right, Hebrews 1 and 1. Well, let's go to John 1 and 1 first. All right, now that you know that, all right, it reads, the heading reads, the deity of Yahweh Shai HaMashiach. HaMashiach means the Messiah. Okay, John 1 and 1, it says, in the beginning was the Word. Okay, the Messiah is also known as the Word. All right, the Word made flesh. Let me see if oh, that's down in this chapter, Hebrews 1, or excuse me, John 1 and 14, with the subheading being the Word made flesh. John 1 and 14 reads, and the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld His glory. And the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. All right, still pointing to, man. Let me read through 18. John 1 and 15 says, John bare witness of him and cried, saying, This was he of whom I spake. He that cometh after me is preferred before me, for he was before me. Still speaking of the word, still speaking of Yahweh Shai, right? And of his fullness have all we received, and grace for grace. For the law was given by Moses, but grace and truth came by Yahweh Shai, the Messiah. No man hath seen Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai, or Yahweh at any time, the only begotten Son, which is in the bosom of the Father, he hath declared him. All right. So the word made flesh is Yahweh Shai. Let's go back here now to John 1. John 1 and 1. All right, understanding what we said about what we showed you here about that word God in Genesis 1 and 1. All right, John 1 and 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with power, and the Word was power. The same was in the beginning with power. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. Okay? Also again, let's go to Hebrews 1 and 1. Oops. Again, it tells you again here, right? Hebrews 1 and 1. The heading being Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai's final word in his Son. Okay? Hebrews 1 and 1, it says, Yahweh, who at sundry times and in diverse manners spake in times past unto the fathers by the prophets, hath in these last days spoken unto us by his Son, whom he hath appointed heir of all things, by whom also he made the worlds. All right, let me jump down here to 4. All right, well, actually, no, I'll read 3. Who being the brightness of his glory, in the express image of his person, and upholding all things by the word of his power, when he had by himself purged our sins, sat down on the right hand of the majesty on high, being made so much better. And just because he sat down on the right hand of the majesty on high, it doesn't make that script a liar. All right. When it says have no other powers beside me, okay, that's speaking of on the level of. All right. He is not on the level of his Father, but he is second. And then everything else is beneath him. Okay. So Hebrews 1 and 4, being made so much better than the angels, as he hath by inheritance obtained a more excellent name than they. All right, being the only begotten Son, the Messiah. All right, and everything else that comes to mind when you think of his name. It says, for unto which of the angels said he at any time, Thou art my Son, this day I have begotten thee. And again, I will be to him a father, and he shall be to me a son. And again, when he bringeth in the first begotten into the world, he saith, and let all the angels of Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai worship him. Okay? So this is all pointing to that God that you read there. All right? In Genesis 1 and 1 being the Messiah. Now, when does the Most High's name first appear? In Genesis 2 and 4. All right, this is Genesis 2 and 4. This is when Yahweh's name first appears in the scriptures. Genesis 2 and 4. These are the generations of the heaven and of the earth when they were created, in the day that the Lord Yahweh power made the earth and the heavens. So through his blueprint, through Yahweh's blueprint, he made the whole earth. Okay? But his Son is who he gave the power to do so. All right? So I just wanted to touch on that. That was just something else to consider. Let me make sure. I thought there may have been one more thing that has to do with this point. All right. The point being, all right, that you have to go into these words. All right. You have to go into the words. As a matter of fact, let's go into Genesis 2 and 4 for that word Lord.
Strong's H 3068. Yehovah. Yehovah.
Jehovah. All right. It's not Jehovah, and it's not V. There is no V. All right. It's W. All right. It's Yahweh. Okay. Yahweh. And that's the word that you get. That's the name of the Lord. All right. So I just want to touch on that really quick. Yeah, so I hope this came through as sincere and edifying. And with that, all praise to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakaha Kwadash. Double honors to my elders, apostles, and the bishops of Great Millstone, otherwise known as GMS for short, but also known as the Prophets of Doom. These are where I have learned this truth and where I am still learning this truth. And also shalom to the remnant and the elect of Israel. Lord willing, I am of that number, and Lord willing, we'll see you in the next video. Shalom.